President Trump is thinking about getting rid and signing an executive order to get rid of voting machines and mail-in ballots. What a coincidence, right in front of the 2026 midterm elections, that he wants to come and alter the way that voting is done in the United States. I mean, like, does he not understand that mail-in ballots is convenient for elderly people such as my mother, who cannot now get out and get to a voting booth to vote? And voting machines, why? Because he doesn't want an accurate count? Talk about dictatorship. He wants to just completely alter something that has been, the standard of voting in the United States for, I don't even know how many decades, but absolutely ridiculous. But what else could be expected from President Taco? So there's some news on this Monday that, yes, President Taco is due to sign an executive order. But the problem that he doesn't understand is that voting goes by state. So if the state chooses to use the machines that he's saying no, he can't really stop them. So we'll see how this plays out. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. Share this video so everybody's aware of what President Taco wants to do now. I love you guys. Be safe out there. Happy Monday.
Putin just confirmed Trump's worst fear. No election is secure if mail-in ballots are still in play. Yes, mail-in voting has been around forever, but mostly for the military and overseas voters, not for the lazies. But when COVID hit, it became the norm, and that led to a 2020 election so questionable it still hasn't fully been settled. Now the emergency is over. You'd think we'd go back to secure in-person voting, but nope. 30% of Americans still mailed in their ballots in 2024. The only way to run a secure election is in-person voting, not drop boxes, not ballot harvesting, in-person ID verified, period. And before you start crying about how, this disenfranchises people, countries with less tech, more poverty, and bigger populations than the U.S. still manage to show up and vote in person. So if you can't make it, it's not because someone is stopping you. It's because you didn't want to be inconvenienced or whatever. Follow for more and drop your take. Should we ban mail-in ballots or tighten up the system?
If you see Donald Trump in the wild talking about he's going to get rid of mail-in ballots and he's going to issue executive orders to ban same-day voting or mail-in registration or whatever the hell, the Constitution gives the power to the states. The states do their own ballots. It had nothing to do with the president. He has zero power or authority to do that. And again, if you follow me, I'm JJ Legal. I've been empowering you guys. What do I say? He issues stupid executive orders that have no power, that's not based on any sense of reality. The man is delusional. He thinks he's going to get a Nobel Prize. He thinks Putin really is going to help and negotiate with him. He's operating on a cognitive decline state, if you ask me, from his rambling speeches, bumping into walls, lumbering up steps, just making all sorts of wild proclamations, inventing stats. He's always done that, just lying on the daisy basis. He's running the Department of Justice because Pam Bondi is doing nothing. She has no power. She has no authority. She doesn't push back whatsoever. She's just happy to have her job. He does absolutely he's just like, they're just a bunch of like lawless goons. They don't know what they're doing. They're not coordinated. They say things in the record on in public and social media that conflicts with what the Department of Justice is saying. The Department of Justice is hemorrhaging lawyers. Their arguments aren't based in facts and reality or stats whatsoever, and that's why they keep losing. So he can't do it. The Constitution says it's up to the states. And then also, all those blue states, you think they're going to just give a million ballots? Is he stupid? Yes, that's the answer. The other thing he says he's scared. And that's also to you people who say stuff like, there's not going to be any more votes. If there's not going to be any more elections, why is he doing everything and above and he can to try to stop telling Texas to find 5 more seats? And stupid Governor Abbott has no damn balls. It's kind of like, there are other Republican states, when he asked for stuff, they said no. When Pam Bondi asked for the Social Security, or they asked for some stuff, a lot of the red states were like, get the hell out of here. I'm not giving you that stuff. So the states with state secretary of states or governors that are Republican, but it's like, nah, I ain't doing that for you. Get out of here. They have balls. They just buck back. The other ones who just like Governor DeSantis, whiny, you have no daggone chutzpah. And Governor Abbott, y'all are weak. Any red state governor that's sending troops to because of Trump asked them to and doing Trump's bidding, they're just on a sinking ship and they have no cojones. And if you all in those states, y'all need to do better about booting them out. Anyway, he's scared. He's scared because we're activating you all. We can just activate like a small portion of that 90 million that sat out. That's the end of it. You get enough people, Operation 2/3 of my campaign. You get enough people, he's risking not only being, because he knows he's doing, impeached, convicted, removed, but then we're going to have common sense gun control. We can do so much. Anyway, JJ Legal, each one teach one.
Trump is going to issue an executive order banning the use of mail-in ballots and voting machines for the 2026 midterms. Now, this is immediately going to be challenged in the courts by several states because states get to run their own elections, but Trump then went on to say that every state is just an agent of the federal government and therefore must listen to what the president says for the good of the country. He referred to the machines as highly controversial and extremely expensive and wants to use watermark paper instead. This would disenfranchise a large amount of voters. Our soldiers who are stationed overseas, elderly people, or people with disabilities who can't wait in long lines to vote in person. This would be detrimental to a large amount of people. And trust me, I would love to be able to really share my thoughts on this, but TikTok would definitely flag my video and give me a strike or take down the video for the For You page. So I had to be very careful and just report it as is.
The Tangerine Toddler's throwing yet another tantrum over mail-in ballots on Truth Social today. And, well, let's just take a look. It's a long one, so you can pause to read these. But basically, he's going to get rid of mail-in ballots and controversial voting machines. Because apparently, hand-counting paper ballots is going to be faster, he thinks. He goes on and on about how he's doing this for the integrity of the midterm elections, but he goes into, of course, a diatribe. Read here. He ends with his signature all caps, "Elections can never be honest with mail-in ballot/voting." And everybody, in particular the Democrats, knows it. Basically calling mail-in ballots a scam or a hoax. Sowing distrust among your own voting base? That worked out really well for you in 2020. Not only is this likely illegal, in fact, it is illegal, it's going to disenfranchise many Americans, including members of the U.S. military who, guess what, may not be stationed at home where they're registered to vote. So you're going to take their votes away now too? This is likely going to be challenged in court if and when he does issue some sort of executive order on it. But of course, you have to know what is going on.
Look at the batshit crazy thing Trump wants to do now. Trump voters, are you legitimately still okay with this?
We got to stop mail-in voting, and the Republicans have to lead the charge. The Democrats want it because they have horrible policy. If you have mail-in voting, you're not going to have many Democrats get elected. That's bigger than anything having to do with redistricting, believe me. And the Republicans have to get smart. You need borders, and you need free and fair elections.
So now Trump wants to get rid of mail-in voting, because if he does that, you're not going to have a lot of Democrats left in office. At what point, Trump voters, do you finally say, okay, enough? Like, this guy has already caused absolute chaos in our country by calling Greg Abbott and telling him he needed to write 5 more districts up for Republicans, and now there's basically a war going on of redistricting, which nobody in the country wants, but which Democrats have to do to defend themselves against this guy's attacks. And now he's saying he's going to get rid of vote by mail, even though, for one thing, he can't do that. States control their own elections. He can't get rid of vote by mail, so it shows his ignorance of the way elections actually work. But also, for this man to talk about free and fair elections out of one side of his mouth, and then talk about taking vote by mail away out of the other side of his mouth, which is something that, guess what, not just Democrats, but Republicans, senior citizens, people with disabilities, students, our people serving overseas in the armed services use to vote? When do you have enough? At what point do you have enough evidence to say this guy absolutely despises democracy? He is hoarding power for himself, and every single thing he does, by the way, is an escalation to distract from the fact that we still haven't gotten to the bottom of what happened with him and Bernstein, as we're now calling him. He's in those files. We need to know why, but he keeps throwing shit at the wall to distract us. He can't take away mail-in voting, but he can erode our trust in our democratic processes and in our systems. Why are we letting him do this? We need to stand together. We need to resist this. This guy is about autocracy, and guess what, y'all? In case you forgot your history lessons, That's what this country was founded upon, was not being ruled by tyrants. That is a tyrant. Thank you.
President Donald Trump is an absolute threat to democracy. Did you know that he's trying to end mail-in balloting across the United States? I just cannot believe that he is trying to make every single U.S. voter show up to a poll, prove who they are, and pick their candidate. Mind-blowing. I mean, no longer can spouses vote for their significant others. No longer can folks vote for their parents or grandparents who haven't been taken off the voter roll yet. I never thought I would live to see an America like this. I am just at a complete loss for words. Why would he do this? Why would he want to verify that the folks voting are who they say they are and that they're even allowed to vote? I mean, first he tries to broker a peace deal between Russia and Ukraine. Now he's trying to enact election integrity. The nerve of that man. I will not rest until... No, actually, I'm good with all of this. Proceed.
Hey everybody, it's August 18th, 2025, and more insanity from the Trump administration. So today, Donald Trump was in the Oval Office with Volodymyr Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, and I'll discuss that whole topic in another video later on. But Trump falsely claims that mail-in voting is extremely corrupt and rigged, and the Democrats are behind it. It's absolutely insane. There is absolutely no evidence to indicate that mail-in voting has ever been used for widespread fraud. It's never been, there's no evidence to show mail-in voting was used to skew or steal an election, claims Trump loves to make. He also wants to get rid of voting machines. Back in 2016, the director of CISA, well, after the election in 2017, the director of CISA, who Trump later fired, said that that was the safest election ever held. Our elections are secure. Donald Trump is a conspiracy theorist. He can't stand that he lost in 2020, so he still claims that that was rigged. And he wants us basically to have a voting system that goes back to, the 1900s. It's ridiculous. It's insane. And the worst part of this whole thing is that he said today in the Oval Office, he discussed this, his voting beliefs with Vladimir Putin, the Russian thug who is killing innocent civilians in Ukraine, who invaded Ukrainian territory, and helped Trump win the 2016 election, or engaged in hacking our elections or getting into our elections in favor of Donald Trump. So this is where we are now. Just every day it's more walks towards authoritarianism. And I know I'll have people comment, MAGA and others, saying, no, it's not that bad, but it really actually is horrific what's happening here. And Trump is going to try everything he can to steal the 2026 midterm elections. That's the crap going on in Texas. And good on Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, for pushing back and telling Texas, if you do this, we will do the same. It's wrong. Trump is scared to death that he's going to be held accountable by the Democrats, and he should be, because the Democrats are going to win in 2026, and Trump's life is going to become hell.
What's up, y'all? This is Oliver Larkin, Democrat running for Congress in the most gerrymandered state in the nation, the state of Florida, where Republicans currently control 71% of the congressional seats in a state where they only won 57% of the House vote in 2024. That's a 14% difference that is enacted thanks to Ron DeSantis' hand-picked Supreme Court, where 5 of his justices upheld the Republicans' gerrymander, eliminating a Democratic district running from Tallahassee to Jacksonville and eliminating 4 Democratic districts overall in the last term of redistricting. But for Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis, even that's not enough. They're coming back for even more seats, especially here in South Florida. Democrats could be looking at losing an additional 4, maybe even 5 congressional seats in this round of redistricting, which means we need Democrats elsewhere to gerrymander these Republicans back, because we are going to lose our democracy if we try to bring a knife to a gunfight when Republicans are trying to eliminate Democrats entirely here in our state of Florida. With 1 year to go until our primary, August 18th, 2026, I'm running against a Democrat who was appointed twice by Ron DeSantis and has not had a bad word to say about DeSantis, even as DeSantis is trying to undermine our democracy entirely. I'm a first-time candidate running for Congress without corporate PAC money, running for Medicare for all, a $25 an hour minimum wage, a Green New Deal, and voting rights. And I'm going to keep running no matter what they do to my district, because the people of South Florida deserve a voice and deserve a choice. As a first-time candidate, without the funds to blast you with those spammy text messages, I'm counting on our social media to help spread the word and get the word out, because we need funds at the end of the day. I'm showing up to every protest, every Democratic club and caucus meeting that I can across our district, where Jared Moskowitz is not, but I can't do it alone, so I need your help. So please, chip in if you can. Thanks. And I'm going to get out of the sun. It's hot.
Trump just announced that today he'll be signing an executive order banning mail-in ballots as well as voting machines prior to the 2026 midterm elections. Let that sink in, guys. Do you know who primarily uses mail-in ballots? Senior citizens, people in the disabled community, and service members serving overseas. So if this does pass, or if this executive order goes through, which I'm sure it'll be held up in court, there are going to be millions of people who will lose their right to vote. Just so everybody's aware, the president doesn't have the authority to do this. States run their own elections, even federal elections. And legal experts are already saying that this will cause massive court battles. But this is what voter suppression looks like. They make it harder and harder for regular, everyday people to let their voices be heard. I do want everybody to pay attention to this, because if they do take away mail-in ballots and voting machines, what comes next? But just know that it will be very hard for this executive order to take off and go anywhere. And I foresee this being held up in the courts well past the 2026 primaries.
During Trump and Putin's meetings, reportedly, they discussed U.S. elections. And I say reportedly because afterwards you had Trump doing an exclusive interview on Fox with Sean Hannity where he said this.
Vladimir Putin said something, one of the most interesting things. He said, your election was rigged because you have mail-in voting. He said mail-in voting every election. He said no country has mail-in voting. It's impossible to have mail-in voting and have honest elections.
With Trump then going on to claim with no evidence that some people get between 5 and 7 ballots and dadding.
Vladimir Putin, smart guy, said you can't have an honest election with mail-in voting. And he said there's not a country in the world that uses it now.
So, a lot to unpack here. First of all, it feels like it should go without saying that Trump has still provided zero actual evidence for his claims of fraud in the 2020 elections. And studies have shown that mail-in voting fraud is rare because there are indeed safeguards in place. Hell, even Trump himself literally embraced it during the 2024 election, encouraging his voters to cast their ballots by mail. A move that very likely helped him win, with an official government report by the U.S. Election Assistance Commission finding that mail-in ballots accounted for 1/3 of all ballots cast in the 2024 election. And while it was certainly less than the 43% that they were in the 2020 election, it's still well above pre-pandemic levels. So if Putin really did say, as Trump claimed, that the 2020 election was rigged because it had mail-in voting and that it's impossible to have mail-in voting and have honest elections, then by that logic, Trump's 2024 election would also be illegitimate. But then also, to that point, it would be absolutely fucking wild to be taking advice about democratic elections from Vladimir Putin, a man who has collectively served as the president of his country for around 20 of the last 25 years, a man who himself has won multiple elections that observers have said were marred by fraud, coercion, intimidation, suppression, and plenty of other non-democratic actions. And this is, you have experts noting that it would be kind of nuts if Putin really did say some of the things that Trump attributed to him. But for example, Fiona Hill, a former top Trump advisor, explaining.
And President Trump asserted in his Fox News interview that there are no countries in the world that allow mail-in voting. Well, Russia allows mail-in voting. And if everybody wants to go out and look, they can look for themselves. In 2020, President Vladimir Putin signed into law